Thank you very much for all your presentations that were very interesting. I am very happy to be here with you today and to share with you my work about an industrial project and its connections with craft and design practices. To start this presentation, I'd like to share two important numbers. 106 billion. That's how many tons of materials are taken from Earth every year to keep the global economy running. And 7.2%, that's the share of those materials that went back into the circular economy in 2023. These numbers show how serious the environmental problem is and how urgently we need to rethink how we produce. We especially need better ways to fight climate change and to manage resources more conscientiously. One major part of the global economy is the industrial sector. This sector makes products on a large scale with a focus on performance and efficiency. But today, because of the climate crisis, we need to move beyond that old way of thinking. Real change is needed, and companies must rethink about their role in society. To make this change happen, several tools are possible, like eco-design, recycling, and durability. And this is where design and craft can play an important role. They offer strong tools to help change how industry works. This brings us to a key question. How can craft and design help transform the industrial model in a more sustainable way? To go further with this question, I would like to present the case study of the Revol manufacturer. Revol is a family-owned business that has been producing porcelain tableware for more than 257 years. Every year, it produces over 4 million pieces, mostly for professional restaurants. Making porcelain depends a lot on natural resources. It uses the 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. Because of this strong link with nature, Revol decided to start an important and new pioneering industrial project, creating 100% recycled ceramic paste. This example helps us to understand how industry can play a big role in managing resources. It also shows how craft and design are important tools for moving toward a more sustainable future. First, we will talk about the case study itself. We will start with the method we used, and then we will explain the industrial project. After that, we will look at the results. We will focus first on the role of craft practices, and then on how design and industry help support these sustainable changes. This case study is based on a 3-year immersion within the Revol manufacturer, in the context of a PhD research project done directly within the manufacturer. The data collected during this time is therefore rich and dynamic, coming from participant observation sessions as well as semi-structured interviews. This material was then interpreted through qualitative analysis, allowing a long-term perspective that highlights the evolution of perception over time. Now let's explain some important steps in the creation of this recycled ceramic paste. The project started in 2017 when the research and development team of the manufacturer began to explore this new production process. In 2019, the process was ready to be used at an industrial scale. And in 2020, the company created a new original ceramic paste called RecyClay. This material is made with 100% from recycled waste that comes from Revol's production process. The main principle of this process is to purify wastewater from production. The purification lets the water either go back to nature or to be reused in manufacturing. This purification allows, at the time, the recovering of mineral materials needed to create a new ceramic paste. It seems simple, but in practice, the process is very complex, and includes 8 steps. They require important changes across the whole production line. In the first step, in each production cycle, the operator cleans the machine with water. The wastewater from this cleaning is then collected in steps 2. This water, which now contains mineral residues, is sent to a treatment station. In steps 4, here the separation happens between the water and the mineral particles. On steps 5, the clean water is then either reused in the production or returned to nature. Then the mineral part is pressed, analyzed, and stored in different groups, depending on its composition. In step 7, the selected groups are then mixed and in a grinder to create the RecyClay paste. And in step 8, the new paste is used again in a dedicated production line, giving it a second life in a production collection marked with a RecyClay logo. The impact of these innovations are both. It has ecological benefits, but also brings industrial risks. Thanks to this purification, water use at the factory has dropped by 20%. That's about 9,000 cubic meters per year. Until 2020, Revol sent 350 tons of production waste every year to treatment plants. The waste was then taken by truck to landfill in the form of sludge. Now, thanks to the new recycling process, 80 tons of that sludge are used again in production. This new process saves water, limits the need of material extraction, and reduces CO2 emissions. This process represents a true innovation in the ceramic industry. Despite being made from production waste, the new paste meets all the same technical standards as the other ceramic paste produced by Revol. It is safe for food use, it is high-fired, which gives it a strong resistance, and it is compatible with all cooking methods, like oven, dishwasher, microwave, and freezer. However, reaching this result was an important technical challenge because production waste is not always the same. Revol uses different clays and glaze, which makes wastewater composition changes from day to day. The process therefore had to ensure that the recycled materials remain stable. It took more than 3 years of research and development to achieve even a basic level of consistency in the recycled paste. Still, RecyClay doesn't behave like standard ceramic paste. It brings several challenges, like color variation and material consistency. The color of the paste depends on the type of production waste. If the factory is making with white porcelain, the sludge will be lighter. But if the factory uses black clays, the paste becomes darker. To fix this, special formulas had to be created to keep a uniform color. Because the composition of waste changes, the paste is sometimes difficult to work with. Even now, it can be unstable. With complex shapes, shrinkage during drying and cracking during firing are more common than with standard clays. To deal with these issues, new manufacturing methods had to be designed. And Revol created a special workshop to work especially with RecyClay. In short, Revol took on substantial industrial risk to make this ambitious project happen. In the tradition of porcelain manufacturing, this paste is truly innovative. Working with such a living and unpredictable material requires a real risk and a real expertise. That's why many porcelain makers will prefer to use fully controlled materials. Exploring new materials introduces new risks, and this innovation shows a strong and sustainable commitment from the company. Once the material had been mastered and patented, the company launched its first tableware collection called the Now collection. The name Now means no waste. It shows the company's duty for a more responsible use of resources. The collection serves a symbolic and a functional outcome of the industrial transformation, aiming to bring the responsibility directly to consumers. At Revel, different ways of producing exist side by side. Usually, traditional craft techniques are used together with industrial machines and robotics, and the designer guides the product development. But for the Now collection, the company chose a different approach, using a clear focus on craftsmanship. The collection was designed by a potter who was hired just for this project. Each piece is first made by hand on a potter's wheel, and then reproduced using standard shaping techniques for larger production. The decorative glaze was also crafted using a symbolic gesture of pottery, the hand glazing. This method helps to eliminate waste and makes each item unique. Only the necessary amount of recycled glaze is used, applied in a way that creates random and finishes. As a result, only the shaping step is done by machine. The first creation and the decoration are done completely by hand, which means every piece is unique. The natural imperfections of the recycled paste are actually included in the design, as you can see in the little cream jug. So very few pieces are thrown away after frying. The Now collection is not only a way to show the use of recycled paste, it is also a real eco-design model that gives value to the waste. From a business point of view, using fewer raw materials, less water and less transport helps reducing cost. This is why the Now products are sold at a lower price. Also, by accepting imperfections as part of the design, the collection reduces the number of rejected pieces, which helps avoid overproduction. Now that some time has passed since the launch of the collection in 2021, the impact appears mixed. Consumers do appreciate the recycled porcelain material, but most of this audience remains largely local, already exposed to local production, sustainability, and the natural handmade feel of craft material. Moreover, the strong artisanal identity of the Now collection contrasts with the rest of Revel's production. They usually blend craftsmanship, industrial processes, and modern design. That hybrid tends to reach a wider audience. In this way, the Now collection uses her craftsmanship mainly for its symbolic value, as a way to give meaning to the recycled porcelain concept and to embrace its enhanced imperfections. After the Now collection, a second project was developed to increase the impact of this innovation. This project is in work in progress now, and at this time, the goal of this new project is to create a collection that would match more closely with the expectations of Revel's usual consumers, especially in the international and high-end hospitality and restaurant. To do this, Revel turned to design. The company invited the designer Noé Duchaufour-Laurence to create a new tableware collection using the recycled ceramic paste. The designer has already worked with the factory and the character collection, which is still very popular today. In this new project, the designer's role is to express the strong message carried by the recycled material. He also has to adapt to its unpredictable nature. And finally, had to create a design that would appeal to a global audience. For Revel, working for a well-known designer is a smart way to make sure this collection will be well received by a more design-conscious and demanding public. A public that might not be immediately interested in sustainability, but about aesthetics and innovation. The designer brought a strong perspective. He suggested that the variability of the recycled paste should not be seen as a problem, but as a key feature of the collection. Since the effluents used in the paste are different in composition and colors, the designer proposed that the final objects should also vary in tone and shade. This would make the collection visually unpredictable and that would be part of the identity of the collection. This concept is radically new because it challenges the traditional catalog model. Usually, consumers expect to receive identical pre-ordered products. Here, instead, each piece would be different, showing the natural irregularity of recycled material. But this bold choice also brings a real commercial risk to the company. It means changing not just the design, but also the way consumers think, and even the way the company produces and sells its products. This example highlights how River use designs and the designer's popularity as a strategic tools to reach an audience that is very sensitive to aesthetics and quality. In this case, designs act as a sign of value and trust, and it helps to give meaning to the recycled materials for consumers who may be not very familiar with. Moreover, design hides a stronger conceptual meaning to the sustainability effort. What was once seen as a technical limitation is now turned into a creative design choice. Finally, this project shows Revolve's commitment by creating a collection led by design. The company is just making a new material. It is also challenging traditional ways of consuming. This change involves a real industrial and business risk, and it confirms Revolve's role as a proactive force for change in the ceramic industry. To conclude, this brings us to 3 key points. The first one shows a real sustainable industrial project, highlighting both its complexity and novelty, as well as the risk involved thanks to an immersive research approach done inside the factory. We can really understand the technical challenge, the bold choice, and even the internal tension this innovation created within the company. Second, the way the innovation is linked to craft practice, both practical and symbolic, show how the value of craftsmanship are used to support this transition. Craft, in this context, becomes the spokesperson for industry, helping to legitimize an innovation that is still in many ways imperfect and evolving. It provides emotional and cultural way to process that is otherwise technical and industrial. Third, the use of design and the designer's perspectives helps to amplify the impact of the innovation on different.
It was very nice, the task. And did they try to include recycled pasts in the new past to stabilize the process?
Yes, you're right. That's one of the new acts of progress, and their tests are done now, but there is no stabilization already yet. But that would be very interesting.
And a problem with the color, perhaps, also.
What you said about the new past and the old past, it's a way we can see it in plastic, in recycled plastic. They mix all recycled plastic with new one to stabilize it. But my question is, I didn't really understand if you take part in the project or if you're just an observer or.
I was PhD student for 3 years within the factory with the Convention CIFRE, and my PhD research is about a global practice of creation of this factory. So I could observe in these 3 years how the challenge was, what sort of challenge was this RecyClay for the manufacturing, the different step with now and yet with the other project of design. But I was not in the research and development team.